Welcome to the Make It Happen podcast. My name is Melanie Moreno. I am a blogger, a content creator, a health coach, and most importantly, I will be your host. Join me for some fun and inspiring conversations with amazing individuals coming up now. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today, it's just me. We're doing a solo episode and gotta say, today's episode has been a long time coming. In that same spirit, everything I think and do has been a long time coming. I feel like I've lived my life one way for so long and held on to so many ideas about how I could be or who I could be and what I was capable of because that's what other people told me. And I've been doing a lot of self-work and unblocking these beliefs during the past year and a half. It sounds so short to say a length of time like that, but so much can happen in a year and a half. Even just a month, I feel myself in that time developing new strengths and realizations of where I can improve. Okay, so today's episode is all about my personal development journey thus far. It's quite a personal topic to me, and I've wanted to share what's inside me for a while, but my stories aren't about places I've been and the wild things I've done. To be honest, I feel like I've lived a very boring and ordinary life, so I don't mean for anything I say today to be taken as me being self-aggrandizing or critical of others who choose to live differently. This is simply my experience, and if it can resonate with one other person, then that's already a magical thing. So, I've been called to speak my truth a lot more recently. There are some projects that I'm working on right now, both online and offline, and I've got to say it can be a little exhausting to be introspective and share that. To share the introspective stuff, I mean. I've wanted to preserve myself and my energy for me, but that's also not helping anyone. And it's a huge motivating factor for my life, for anything that I do. Like, I want to be able to help people. So keeping my knowledge inside of me isn't doing that. I'm a composite of all the people I've gotten to know and the knowledge and insight that comes from what they share and trying things out for myself, seeing what works for me. So if I can speed up this process for you and deliver the same information in a quicker, more condensed way, information that's taken me months and months, or years even, for some, to understand, then perhaps that will help guide you on the path that you are on, or encourage you to create space for self-discovery. Part of my dilemma is being concerned about being ambiguous, or not providing enough context for my learnings and experiences, because I'm in my head all day. But when I explain something to someone else, it might be the first time they're hearing it. I want to keep this brief, but if any questions come up, or if something strikes you while listening, something you want to hear more about, then please write those things down. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask. I think it's really important, if something does stand out to you, to not let it just disappear. Send them my way, and I'll see what I can do to respond, or maybe I can do a follow-up episode. Or if something like a keyword stands out to you, something that you want to learn more about, then maybe you can just write it down so you can research it and explore the topics on your own time, independently. Either way, if something stands out to you, it's for a reason, and you should trust that. For now, I'll begin by explaining a little bit about what my upbringing was like. Just like I always ask my podcast guests to do, I feel like it provides a really great context for what I'm about to dive into. So today's episode is pretty much about the ways that I've realized that I have self-limiting beliefs, and those are beliefs about my ability to be heard and be seen, my tendencies to be people-pleasing, and just trying to overcome them, because everything that I want out of my life, and that's right now or in the future, anything that I want has a limiting belief between me and that thing, or the idea of the thing. That probably sounds really ambiguous again, but hopefully this will make more sense as I keep talking. So I've pretty much lived in the same county my entire life. I grew up in a little town called Calipatria, and I always think I had the best time growing up there. For kids, the world doesn't seem to exist outside of what's in front of them. And now as an adult, I know Calipat is so stinking small, but to me, as a kid, it felt so huge. I loved when my parents would run errands around town because I'd tag along with them and I'd get to meet people. I feel like I knew everyone in town. And that's me. As a little kid, I felt like I knew everyone. I'd still have things to explore, new settings. I was also really tight with the owner of a local movie rental spot, which was probably my favorite place to go. I digress. So part of what made it memorable was having a big home and outlets for exploration. My parents were managers of an apartment complex, so they essentially worked from home. I followed my dad along wherever he would go if he was doing renovations or repairs in the apartments or going to the hardware store. My dad did most of the maintenance and handyman stuff around the apartment complex, and my mom did more of the administrative work. And her office was connected to our apartment. It made her accessible, and she was very present and involved with me growing up because of that. I was essentially a little shadow to both of my parents, and they were really great about explaining things to me and always giving me the chance to move around and use my hands and learn. I can't remember specific details about what it was like when I was in my early elementary school years, but I've always been told that I had a lot of energy. My mom always says how everyone she would come into contact with would say that about me. I couldn't ever sit still. She would tell me to stay in one place, and after it passed through my 2-second attention span, I'd be up and moving around. I had no fears because the world that I had gotten to know was not scary to me. I also had trust in my parents that they would come to my rescue if needed. So I feel like I had a pretty secure attachment growing up. However, being rambunctious with my parents was one thing, but to teachers in school, I was just a handful. I've been told that I was the kid who would initiate conversations and lead other kids in adventures, which sounds kind of cool, but I don't think teachers like it very much when you rally up other kids during class time. So I can't tell you how many times my parents got called to meetings. During parent-teacher conferences, they would get told things like, maybe I have ADHD and they should get me checked out for that. And I've got to say, bless my parents for not doing that. Current research shows that so many children get diagnosed with ADHD who don't even have it. It's overdiagnosed because teachers and parents are just looking for a reason to dull their child when their kid is a handful. Yeah, maybe I was a handful, but I was also just a freaking kid. The only thing that saved me was that I was smart. I did really well with my schoolwork, and I was a huge reader. I was reading at higher levels than my grade always. I think that sort of helped prevent me from getting an unwarranted diagnosis because I wasn't actually having problems in school. Still, because of my behavior, I definitely wasn't the one that was picked for Student of the Month or Student of the Year, and I'll admit that really got to me. While I enjoyed the challenge of school, I always wanted that praise. I think I so often heard all the talk about Melanie's a handful, she's too much, she has endless energy, and I felt like those were bad things about me, and I wanted to have something that was redeeming about myself. I wanted to fit in, and teachers really love the quiet kids, the ones who stay in their seat and do their work silently and don't cause any commotion. And that just wasn't me. But I still wanted to be liked. In my little kid brain, getting a Student of the Month certificate would be proof that I was worthy. How pathetic is that? Just know, thinking about that, it's a terrible thing, what the system does. So I ended up moving when I was in the 5th grade, and the whole change of scene and change of school situation definitely squashed some of my energy. I was the hugest extrovert, as you can probably tell from everything that I was just saying about me as a kid. I felt large and in charge in my old home and town. And now I was just a small fish in a big pond. For anyone else who has experienced moving as a kid, you can probably understand how that feels. I tried to find my place when everything, especially friend groups, were seemingly so established already. I'd say this is where I began to mellow out a little bit more. My teachers still thought I was a handful. I had a lot of energy. And the only difference was I was learning ways to channel that and let it out on the playground or after school hours instead of during class time. I was a loud kid and I liked the attention, but I think all of the messaging was continuously taking a toll on me because by the time I got to junior high, I was not that extroverted kid anymore who was loud and so without shame for who she was. I became more introverted. It was the same sort of deal going to a new school and being a small fish in a big pond, except now this was a bigger pond. And I just shrank into myself and decided to focus on academics instead of socializing. The weird thing is, for a long time after this point, I considered myself to be an introverted person. I just thought, this is who I am, this is my identity now. The young Melanie put herself out there and loved people, loved hearing their stories, loved looking for more, and I lost some of that as a teenager. I don't want to turn this into an autobiography, but I simply felt like I started to embody the way that other people wanted me to be and starting to live like that. You know, the way they'd say that I was too much and they wished I would calm down. And I just thought, well, with my shyness of being in a new school and new situation, and then having those ideas in my head, I thought this is a good thing to be this way. Other people want this from me. This is who I should be. This is who society wants me to be. I mean, there are some perks to being quiet and introverted, and I think those are the development of skills like being an empathetic person, being observant, and also being a good listener. Gosh, if I had $1 for each time someone told me I'm a good listener. I mean, yes, I am, but part of the reason comes from me feeling like I couldn't speak up. I thought I was too loud and I needed to be quiet. I thought others had more important things to say, so I needed to hush up and let them talk. This actually caused a lot of problems for me in terms of my self-value. My voice was second to what others had to say. As a kid, my parents ruled my life. I couldn't do anything without asking them permission first. So this already made me bypass my inner voice and just go straight to them. Regardless of whatever I thought, I didn't get to make my own choices. And then let's take the same attitude to school where I felt things were oppressive, but I also didn't know any better. To me, school and teachers made all of the decisions, and that's just the way it was. And I just had to go along with it because I was a kid and those were the rules. I've never been one to question things. When there's rules or guidelines, structures, I usually adapt to those and I accept them for what they are. I accept them as being true and don't imagine that things could be any different. And I think that's something that I've been really working on. So, interestingly enough, my quiet demeanor seemed to attract people who were really talkative and also kind of domineering. Mostly kids. As a teenager, those would be friends who were loud and spoiled or kids who just weren't afraid to speak up. I also dealt with a number of instances of bullying because I didn't know how to speak up. I was an easy target for others to pick on because I would just take it. I could feel it eating away at me, though. I even had a phase of bullying a friend of mine who was exploring her sexual orientation, and she was really expressive. The whole thing still hurts me to this day that I could be so mean. And I think we've gotten past it, but I know I was feeling so belittled from all of the different areas of my life, and I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know how to deal with what I felt, and I took it out on my friend. The things we deny in ourselves are what we judge in other people. So as I got older, I still carried the be quiet and follow the status quo sort of mentality. I would look at other people who rebelled, spoke their minds, or simply dressed differently, and I would judge. Plain and simple. I would wonder, why can't they just be normal? Why can't they follow the rules? Why can't they, be more like everyone else? And it took me a long time to realize that judgment that I had for other people stemmed from my own insecurities, my inability to be myself. So while I silently judge others who behaved outside of the norm, I was also really fascinated with them and wanted what they had. This extended beyond using just my voice to be heard and to actually being seen. Again, being an extroverted child showed me that I loved having the spotlight on me. One of my earliest career choices, and one that I carried with me for a number of years, was to be an actress. I literally spent hours researching how I could break into acting, investigating how much it would cost to get headshots taken, inquiring if my parents would drive me. I was seriously interested in acting because I had so much energy and I liked the attention. But meanwhile, I was getting the increased messaging, as I said, about being calmer and don't misbehave or act up and that sort of thing in school and from adults. So I just started to feel a lot more shy. I had some minor moments where I auditioned for projects and had some small parts in a few plays. Interestingly enough, I even asked for the small parts. I didn't feel confident enough in myself to be able to carry a performance on stage. I didn't believe in my talents, and no one else around me was encouraging performance art in any serious way. I don't want to say I needed validation, but as a kid, as someone who felt her gut telling her to head down the creative side, but the world she was in was all academics and college and professional career stuff, creativity was just not nurtured. I did do a lot of artistic stuff as a child. My mom's very creative. I did all sorts of painting and drawing, coloring, crafts, you name it. I did it. But I always felt like it was just a hobby because no one around me showed me that was possible. I needed expanders, but the only expanders I ever received were leading me in a direction my heart wasn't feeling. In case you're not familiar with the term expanders, that simply means people who have something that you want. It's like modeling what's possible. This isn't my creation. It's a term coined by Lacey Phillips of To Be Magnetic. I actually want to talk about this a bit more, to talk about To Be Magnetic, because it's been a huge reason that I am where I am today. To Be Magnetic is a series of workshops that are aimed at unblocking limiting beliefs and reprogramming them into beliefs that serve you through hypnosis. It's not scary or woo-woo. We all have beliefs looping through our brains, and the workshops serve to help you identify what you need to work on and create neural pathways with new beliefs that benefit your self-worth. The program is rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and it helps with unblocking, addressing your shadows, increasing your self-worth, and taking you through the groundwork for manifestation. It's very functional, and like I said, it's helped me tremendously. In some ways, the workshops can be like a therapy session. but you have to do the work. If you're ready to face your issues and take action on what's going on in the subconscious, sort of unveiling what's been holding you back from the life you want, then you could perhaps benefit too. There are some a la carte workshops that you can purchase, but my recommendation is to join the Pathway, which is the monthly subscription where you have access to all of the workshops and exclusive offerings. If this is something that you're interested in, check out the link in the show notes and use the code MAKEITHAPPEN for $20 off your first month of the Pathway. Again, To Be Magnetic has helped me tremendously. It's completely self-guided, so you choose your own pace and whatever you want to work on. I can't recommend it enough. If you have any questions, feel free to send them my way and I'd be happy to answer. Let's get back to the episode. Limiting beliefs that I held about myself influenced how I showed up in the world and how I presented myself to other people. I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on the introversion and extroversion that I mentioned earlier. So I looked this stuff up online, and I was so positive that being an introvert was just who I was. It gave me the excuse to choose to be by myself and not feel bad if I couldn't go to a party. It also became my explanation for why I felt so drained after talking to people for a significant amount of time. Just to clarify, talking means using my voice and having words come out of my mouth. And I wasn't doing that. When I'd get together with friends, I would ask them how they were and inquire about things going on with them, and I wasn't ever asked about myself. And I would feel exhausted because I gave therapist-level attention to whoever I was with, and I got nothing. Well, I won't say I got nothing because I certainly learned so much from people because I had just a long period of silence, essentially. When I say nothing, I mean I had stuff going on too, and I didn't have an outlet. If my friends were supposed to be who I could talk to, I always just thought, why don't they ask me questions? Why don't they care about what's on my mind? And that led me to the realization, I'm skipping ahead here, but it led me to realizing that if I wanted things to change, I had to speak up. I couldn't keep being quiet and hope that the bullies would go away. I couldn't assume that me being a good listener would make others want to listen to me. I grew up with the motto of treat others the way you want to be treated. I won't say that's not a valid perspective to have, but it's not enough. I'm going to sidestep for a second here and mention Gary Chapman's 5 love languages. If you haven't heard of the love languages, then they are basically the 5 major ways that we like to give and receive love. It extends beyond romantic relationships, though, and it also applies to friendships, interactions with coworkers, and all sorts of relationships. You can look up more about the 5 love languages online. There's even a little quiz that you can take, which I highly recommend. It's so important. Once you know your love language, it makes interacting with people who you are close to a lot easier. The more you understand what your needs are, the better you can communicate them to others. So, my mistake was trying to treat others how I wanted to be treated, i.e., how I wanted to receive love, right? And thinking that they would give me that same treatment back. But it doesn't work like that. I have to be clear about what I want. And growing up seeing so much of the same thing and never being asked about my thoughts, it just made me so out of sync with my natural rhythms and intuition. The main culprit for the disconnect I felt with myself was my desire to keep things smooth and not stir the pot with others. For anyone who doesn't know, hi, my name is Melanie and I'm a Libra. So essentially, I'm always striving for balance, always weighing the options and trying to keep the peace. Now that we're all caught up, let's dissect those tendencies of mine to acquiesce to other people. This is so multi-layered, but a big thing is me not wanting to cause confrontation. If I disagree with someone or try to speak up, I'm going to be met with a resistance from the other party. that is so hard to handle, especially because when I was younger, everyone would tell me what to do. The moment you set your foot down and try and draw a boundary, that's the moment when other people become insulted. Other people, as in the ones who benefited from your previous complacency and submissive ways. There was so much that I would take. I'd be the loyal friend who listens, or goes out of her way to help, or bites her lip instead of saying what's really on her mind. And worst of all, the person who takes the bullet to be uncomfortable in a situation just to please someone else. I put my comfort second to someone else, always. And yeah, there are times when we have to work cooperatively and manage that give and take. Sometimes things are gonna feel uncomfortable. I fully respect that. But I had gotten to the point where all I would do is give, and give, and I'm not blaming anyone else for that either. I take full responsibility for it. This was my doing. I did not have the boundaries in place, and that was like wearing a bright neon sign that said, "Take from me." It attracted people from far and wide who would just walk all over me, who knew the things to say to keep me on their hook and to make me give them the benefit of the doubt instead of honoring what my gut said and what felt right to me. If it's not clear, people-pleasing freaking sucks. This might not be an everybody problem, but it was a me problem. And it's still something that I try and remain conscious of today. Additionally, I felt like other people had the answers, and that they knew better. I take everything to heart, and God forbid somebody would say a competing statement to me, because then I'd just have this cluster of confusion in my head. Whenever different statements from different but equally respectable sources seem valid, which, again, as a Libra, every sort of opinion holds validity and every idea needs to be weighed. But then it's up to me to find the truth somewhere in between all those. And if I let it affect me, I could probably stay up all night trying to figure something out, but that's not the way I want to be anymore. I was, and I don't want to be that person. A notable part of my journey thus far has really been about getting clear on who I am and shedding those labels, the expectations, the conditioning, the opinions, and anything else that doesn't resonate with me. I'm nowhere near done with this, surely, but I'm more cognizant of the kind of person I want to be, and it's not one who bends over backwards for other people. It's taken a lot of introspection and time alone, legitimately having space where I can kick out the noise and not need to react, which is the way so many of us live now, just reacting to situations all day long. It sounds so vague, but creating these pockets of time to be with your own thoughts is where the magic happens. And I've heard it, the whole, I don't like what comes up when I'm alone with my thoughts. That's a big thing I've heard, and I've trekked through the mud myself. That's a whole nother podcast on its own, but I will say that what comes up is what you need to work on. Instead of avoiding uncomfortable feelings, lean into them. Take ownership of them. Because, to quote Lacey Phillips, whatever you don't own, owns you. While today's episode paints a little bit of a picture of some of my experiences, it isn't everything. I have had a really safe and comfortable life for the most part, and I don't take that for granted. Those are the things that I try and focus on myself. I try and give gratitude for that. But there have also been some really hard times, some really tough times with my health, with finances, with friendships, and so much more. And maybe I'll save that for another podcast or for my memoir. Who knows? I don't know. I just wanted to give you guys some backstory about where I've come from and some big lessons that I've been trying to work through recently. And I was deeply called to share this with you. I'm glad to have finally taken the time to sit down and record this, and as always, I'd be really happy to hear what you guys think and if anything resonated with you. Let me know if you would like more of these kinds of episodes in the future. If you're still listening right now, then I'm so, so thankful for you. Yes, you right now listening to me. It blows my mind that you've made it to the end of the episode and been here for what I had to say. I feel very honored and appreciative to be included in your day. I send you all so much love. Thank you, and